Okay guys, well it's been a couple days since I filmed the last piece of taking the power steering pump off here. I went to the hardware store yesterday and picked up some stainless. This is an M10 by 1.5 bolts, but it might be a little bit too long, so I might have to cut it down, which may be an issue cause it's stainless, and I don't think stainless cuts very easily. But I got two of these to plug where those two green caps were in the power steering pump. I spoke to a friend who's a mechanic, and he said that the two green things sticking out of the power steering reservoir weren't a big deal. If they were going to cause an issue, they would have caused an issue way before, now. So basically I should just let it go. That was not the reason my power steering pump failed, is what we got out of that. So we're all set to go ahead and get started rebuilding this vacuum pump. And I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit before we get started. I got to be honest, for the last couple days, I've been stalling. I'm a little bit nervous about rebuilding this because it's got stuff that fits in, because if I do this wrong, I'm going to have to take all this junk back out of the truck, and because if I break it, it's going to cost a lot of money to get another one of these. And in my heart, I know I've done everything I can to prepare for this. I've watched the Gould gear pump twice now. I've watched other videos about guys doing this, but this is the first time I'm doing this. And I've certainly had other projects that were involved, and I've gotten through them. I know there's a video of something called a bucket positioning valve on my Bobcat I made 6 or 8 years ago. That was as involved as this, but this one's getting me a little bit nervous, and I guess I just want to acknowledge that I am a little bit nervous, and I'm trying to stay calm. And through this whole, series, if you're like, why doesn't the guy keep going? Why doesn't he push a little harder? This is all the first time for me, and I don't want to push and end up breaking something. There's a saying for people that do mechanical things: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'm about to tear apart a vacuum pump that ain't broke. There was no leakage here whatsoever, but it just seems like the right thing to do for where we are. I'm just going to acknowledge that yes, I definitely am nervous, but I've been breaking it down into little bits at a time, even if it's just one bolt or figuring one thing at a time. All I can do now is move forward and move forward carefully. And I assure you, and I guess I should just assure myself, if something does not fit right on this vacuum pump, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to hit it harder with the hammer. I'm going to figure out why. I've learned so much already, and I'm going to learn so much more. But I guess I'll stop talking and move. I just wanted to acknowledge what I'm feeling right now. So I have the directions printed out by Cummins here. This sheet, off screen, I am going to be ticking boxes as I go. I've got my seal kit from Cummins. It's a genuine Cummins part. So let's just see what happens. And the next thing they want me to do is to remove the two cap screws holding the vacuum pump housing and vacuum pump bearing housing. So these guys are next. So let's see if we have something that fits that. They're 13s, so I'm going to use this longer wrench and see if I can get a little bit better bite on these. Wow, those are tight. Let's think about this. What would we do for a 13 that is ridiculously tight? I can't figure out how to hold this thing. Well, I need a way to hold this stuff in place so I can just put a little force on that. Kind of wondering if the next step should be is if you're going to rebuild your vacuum pump, just break these bolts free while the thing is still attached to the truck with these cap screws, because this sucker's on there. I mean, dare we put it back on the truck just to break these free? It just wants to roll. All right, guys, what I did is I snugged it up in the vise with the soft jaws on, and I'm very careful. I don't have any pressure on the mounting bolts down here, the mounting flanges. So hopefully this is just enough where I can... Nope, that's not enough. I don't see any fractures in the housing yet from me cracking it, from hitting it too hard with the hammer. So I am going to go and I'm going to bolt this thing back up and see if I can just crack it free, bolted back up on the truck. So we will be back. I don't know if I can say shortly, but we'll be back. The best way I found to break this bolt free is I braced it against the tire here, put my foot on it, and then this is a 24-inch, half-inch breaker bar, and I just very slowly moved it until it cracked. That seemed to be the best solution, so you can brace the other side of the shaft here. I got the other one off by putting it back on the truck, but I gotta wonder, see, you got this fitting here. It seemed to work better getting it under the tire because it wanted to slip out. I'm not sure if it would come off this way to get this one, but I didn't want to just start banging on it because I believe it's aluminum, and I didn't want to crack it. So I'd recommend using a 6-point. I only have a 12-point, unfortunately. That seemed to be the best way to get these free without killing yourself. Okay, guys, well, I lost about 2 hours of my life trying to get these 2 bolts loosened, and I'm happy to say that I got them loose, and to the best of my knowledge, I did not crack, bend, distort, or damage the housing at all. One of them I got loose by putting it in the truck. One of them I leaned against the tire. Next time around, I'll go right for the tire. I did chowder up a couple of these bolts a bit. They're not horrible. I'll take a file and clean them up. This is my gear wrench, 120 XP. I love these things for tough spots. It's a ratcheting wrench and it's really long. But these are what's known as spline drive. There's little nubs that come out and they grab the bolt, so they tend to, screw up the bolt, for lack of a better term, if it doesn't want to move. So because I was having trouble, the spline drive, did screw the bolts up, one of the bolts up. Sockets, and I'm sure you guys know this if you're watching this video, they come in 6-point and 12-point, and it's very rare that you'll see a 12-point bolt. But you can use a 12-point socket on a 6-point bolt. So these bolts are 6 points. I'm just looking at my tools now, and a lot of my sockets, well, my half-inch drive are 12 points. So I think I need to, if I'm going to be doing more work on things, get myself some sets of 6-point sockets of a decent brand. Just because I'd rather break something loose with a 6-point that's less likely to damage it than with a 12-point where you have less surface to grab. For breaking things loose, I mean, if there's no other option, the spline drive is okay. And again, I see absolutely no hairline cracks. I see no deformities. Hopefully it'll stay that way. In the shaft, just the bolts, I did chowder them up a little bit, but we can work with that. All right, let's see what happens. Let's try this way, maybe. So there we go. there's a pin right here to align it to the housing, but it's weird, there's another hole over here, but based on the way this looks like I took it apart, the pinhole goes closer to this where the vacuum pump lets all the vacuum out. I went over everything, cleaned it up really good, and I took all my vanes out one at a time here, and all the vanes, they were moving freely. There wasn't like a lot of junk on them, so I didn't bother sanding the vanes down. That's something that the Gould video talks about. So then what we're supposed to do is put our 2 bolts that hold the housing together underneath here, because the housing isn't level, and then we're supposed to take a socket 1-inch diameter. Oh, the other thing is, as you're looking down this way where you see the oil fitting underneath, the plus on the cross piece is right there, and the cross piece very definitely, it moves very freely, very easily, but the cross piece, the plus is facing the oil supply. And the other thing was, I tried to fit the pieces back together, and boy, that cross piece is super tight. Don't freak out when you go to put them back together and it doesn't make it the last, you know, what's that, about a 1/4 inch, because you really need to, you know, just stick a screwdriver in there and manipulate that cross piece to get it back together. So just stay calm on that one. But let's see if we can take our 1-inch socket. I just have this here because it wants to fall over without, but I'm going to take that off so I don't damage it. And I'm supposed to just bang this down and knock that center piece out. So as you're looking at this, this is the way we had it. I banged it down, and there's the plus from the cross piece. So the plus from the cross piece faces the oil supply. There's no plus on this side. So we'll clean that off, and I'll go ahead and clean all this stuff off. This is really a very highly machined piece of metal. I mean, of course it's a vacuum pump, it's gotta be, but wow, this is really very precise. And I did forget, you know, the Gould gear video talks about marking this piece so you know when it's gone in all the way, and I forgot to do that. So hopefully we get that right. I don't really see any markings on this piece like it would matter how it went. It's a round piece going into a round, you know, going into a round area there. So there is an oil supply line in the bottom, an oil supply hole, but there's no supply hole in this. I'm supposed to remove the O-ring and discard. Using an 1.25-inch socket, press the seal out of the sleeve. So I need an 1.25-inch socket. That one looks just right. All right, so using an 1.25-inch outside diameter socket, press seal out of sleeve. Oh. Okay, so this one did have me confused. So the seal, which is, I believe it's a two-lipped seal, was down like that. So the flat side of the seal goes against this lip. So when we flip it over, the flat side goes down on this guy. So how do we remember that? Flip it over. I mean, that's really the only logical way to put it, because the flat side, there's a little ridge in here. So the only logical way to install that seal would be to have it resting against that ridge. Right? I mean, how can you screw that up? All right, guys, dinner's here. We're taking a break. The next thing they want us to do is go ahead and put the seal in here, the dust seal, and there's a little lip on the inside of this that we need to push it to. And I had this in the house. This was actually about a foot away from the wood stove for the last half hour. And I had this seal in the refrigerator, hoping that helps. Let's see what we got to push that down with. This one looks pretty good. Unfortunately, that socket was a little bit too big. Oh, that one's nice. That should work. So hopefully you guys can see that. That socket, I'm pretty sure, was riding just on the outer lip of that seal. And then on the inside here, it's really hard to make out. But I got that puppy resting against the little lip. The little lip in there. Let's see if we do this. And I mean, yeah, you could probably put like a piece of paper in there, but I don't know what more I could do before I distort the seal in there. Let me try zooming way in, and hopefully this will work. Okay. This is more just so I can reassure myself that I did this right and I don't wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. Next, they want us to install the O-ring that goes right over here. And the directions said that I should lubricate the new shaft seal that I just put in with engine oil, and they say I should be lubricating this one with engine oil as well. I'm going to try using something called Sil Glide. I saw a video about this. Seemed like some pretty neat stuff. So we're going to give this its maiden shot. This stuff is just supposed to help lubricate O-rings when you put them in so they don't catch and get rolled and God knows what else. So hopefully this is going to help us. Okay, so there we go. The next step is going to be to put this guy down there, but before we do that, we're supposed to remember to put this cross plate in. And remember, the side with the square faced towards the oil access hose. So we're going to put it in like this. And I don't know how your seal looks, but the side with the square is definitely much more finished. You guys probably can't see that, but it's very finished on this side, and this side it looks kind of veiny almost. I really don't know if that makes a difference or not, but the side with the square towards the oil. This guy, I did forget to mark the shaft, so it's going to be kind of hard to know positively if I got it right or not. But I will say, if you look at this piece right here, there's an ever so slight lip. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. And inside this shaft, they machined out, and there's a matching lip on the inside. And above that lip, there's probably, I mean, it depends which side, the more open end of it, the more open side of it, it's what is it, between 1/8 and 1/4, which is something 16ths, 3/16ths, maybe there's a 3/16ths gap. So somehow we're going to put this guy in, and we're supposed to seat it by hand first, not just start wailing on it, so that O-ring is seated nice. And then we need to, does this work? This is going to work for a while, but it might get too tight. And then we're going to bang this down until on this side, I don't know if you guys can see. So you see this lip right here? This lip is going to disappear completely by the time this is set. And if I draw a line, probably right about there or so, that'll be right on the casting. Let's see what happens. First, before we go nailing this down super hard, make sure we didn't do anything to our O-ring, and I can't really tell if the O-ring rolled or not. So the seal glide is on there, so we're going to hope that's okay. I feel like I could keep hitting that, and you know, all it's going to happen is the casting is going to split open. But you can see the line I drew there, which isn't perfect, but I think we're where we need to be. So when we attach this to the power steering pump, the shaft of the power steering pump is going to go through this seal, and this seal is what's going to keep the engine oil on that side. Okay guys, well I just went in and watched that last clip of me driving this in, and it was pretty painful to watch. After I banged it the first time, the seal pretty much sat. You know, maybe I could have gone back one more time and checked it, but I definitely hit it too much. And you know, if you can learn a lesson from me is, you know, when you're driving a seal like this, when it stops going, don't keep hitting it. I looked over the casting here. I see no cracks, no fractures. So we're going to hope everything's okay. I didn't really hit it super hard, for lack of a better term. You know, it was a certain blow. So hopefully once it, you know, seated, it just stopped going in. But I don't know if I edited it or not, but I think I went back 3 times, possibly 4, after I initially seated the seal, and that was wrong. So learn from my mistakes. The final operation on this vacuum pump is going to be to put the O-ring back over here and seal this puppy up. This is the hole we're supposed to line up. You can kind of see where the O-ring goes. And the video by Gould Gear, he was putting, I think he was using grease where the O-ring's going to go. So I'm using the silicone, and I really don't know why. It says nothing about that in the directions. But let's see. This... Now, one thing we have to do is make sure we get this shaft lined up right, and then we got to line up that pin. So you see how nicely that went? If you can't get this on, you got to check your dogs. Can you see in there? It's a very tight fit where these dogs go in. So if you can't get it on, don't force it. Make sure you got it right. And then I did go and I cleaned up these bolts. So this is the new and improved bolt. I took off the pieces I chowdered, and then I just hit them with a wire brush so they look nicer. I tried to keep them square, but just not to leave them looking chowdered. That was my goal. Okay, so remember when you're putting this together, you've got to line up the dogs in here, but you've also got that dowel pin. Right here, there's this hole, at least on mine, that shows where the dowel pin is. So you can't force this thing together. And then the Gould gear video, he recommends alternating. When you tighten these, don't just tighten one like crazy. Snug up one, snug up the other, even pressure. And I am using a 6-point socket so I don't mess anything up. Okay, now the directions want me to torque. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this on the bench. All right, I'm going to take this over to the tire and set it up and see if we can torque it that way. Okay, they're both torqued. Well, there we go, guys. She's all back together, and I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good about it. Everything moves smoothly. I have looked over this casing, and I do not see any stress cracks, fractures, bends from the abuse I was giving this poor guy. I feel so bad for trying to drive that seal 5 times. Not sure that bit made it to the video or not. But she's good to go. I think we have officially hit the halfway point of this repair. We are now starting to put things back together as opposed to continue to disassemble them. So the next thing we're going to do is see if we can get this power steering pump mounted to the vacuum pump, get the bolts on right, and then just keep moving forward, one step at a time. Guys, if you made it this far in the series, God bless you, and thanks for your support, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.